And I'd like to thank Rohan, who's taking his time off, and he'll be helping us go through some of the very basic aspects of PHP, and also take any questions that any of you guys have. Please feel free to type out your questions at any point of time, and we'll be happy to take them. Right. So, before we get into details, we'll just like to understand what server side, how things were before the advent of server side programming. And for doing that, we need to understand the difference between dynamic and static sites. So, typically static sites are the ones which don't change. Even if you click on a button, or even if you load it, refresh it many times, it does not change because it's static, right? Even if you the only time it changes is when you click on a hyperlink, for example, as opposed to a dynamic website, which changes every time it is loaded, if there is fresh content. So a good example of this is Facebook, or any of the the social networking kind of sites, where the latest news feeds are uploaded on the page automatically without any user action. Right. And also, so this is one example of a dynamic site. Another scenario could be the online banking sites that a lot of us frequent, and depending on the login details that you input, the details would the details which you see on the page, that would change. So these are examples of dynamic pages where what you see on the site depends on the input that you give, and also it changes depending on the live data that the server has. Right. So we just spoke about static versus dynamic, and dynamic can result from either server side or client side programming. I'd just like to get Rohan here at this point of time and he'll help us understand this in more detail.
Hi guys, this is Rohan here. So as Kaushik was mentioning, basically static and dynamic, major difference. Static, the data remains the same, it's only HTML with hyperlinks, and you see whatever is there on the site. Content never changes. Dynamic sites are mainly content centric sites, wherein it could be text or imagery or video or audio content which keeps on getting updated, and basis this updation, the user community can or that data changes on the website and can be rendered to the clients. So the clients typically are basically your browsers, your Internet Explorer or your Firefox browsers, from where you will be accessing these sites. They typically understand HTML content. So what happens is basically there's an application server at the back end which is running on probably using PHP, which connects to a database. So any input which comes from the user through this Internet Explorer gets recorded into this database and can be shown to different clients depending on the kind of programming that happens on the application server side. Now typically this application server will relate to the database for any authentication or any particular data which needs to be pulled out and showcased to the client. But this is also, this data can be also rendered through XMLs and parsing simple XML files, which could be text-based files, and throwing up data to the end user. Simple example here would be in terms of, for example, RSS feeds, which could be showcased on a website, which keep on changing dynamically. That data gets picked up from website A, can be dynamically showcased on a website B using those feeds.
Yeah.
So basically, the server-side scripting is all about programming, and basically on the client side, whatever is being programmed is being displayed out there as a simple output. The browser is basically displaying whatever the data is being rendered by the application which has been written. This could be a simple application wherein it could be displaying various names of people who are a part of the group, for example, dynamically. Or a simplistic piece to take it is basically giving this example, showing up new, in this webinar, for example, showing up the newer people who are coming and attending this webinar is thrown up out here. So that's the flexibility which is there with the client server application on the programming side.
Right. So, PHP is the world's largest open source server-side scripting language, and all of us know what open source means, and later on in the presentation we'll talk more about what the proprietary counterparts of PHP are, and how PHP is really getting more and more widespread in its usage, right? And so there are various areas which PHP can help you to work on. Rohan will just explain this in more detail.
Yeah, so basically, as Kaushik mentioned earlier, PHP is the most widely used open source programming language. These days, when it comes to open source, everybody relies on a PHP MySQL kind of a combination for using on the programming side and creating dynamic websites or web pages for rendering to the Internet Explorer browsers or Firefox browsers. This is simply wherein what happens is basically the application is receives a particular input based on the programming logic, deciphers or comes out with an output which is rendered back to the browser in an HTML format. The website in terms of the look and feel can also be customized, and it's more useful wherein it comes to basically displaying various data to the or content to the end consumer through the client on the websites. So that is there. Plus in terms of security wise as well, there is enough security which can be defined within this even being open source. One can define security levels and can have enough customization done in terms of ensuring that there is good rendering of the site.
Right. Yeah, so this is, basically we wanted to make the point that these scripts are executed on the server. So the browser, whether it is ASP or PHP, it does not need to support scripting at all. So is this different from client-side scripting, where the browser would need to support JavaScript, and you see a lot of these messages a lot?
Yes.
So that must be an advantage.
Yes, so basically the advantage here is as you mentioned rightly, the client side does not literally understand what's happening. It's a simple HTML kind of an output which is put out and displayed to the end user on the browser, and the browser simply displays that. There are no add-ons which are required on the browser. There are no, just as you said, ActiveX or any other add-ons which would be required for having JavaScript or maybe Flash, for example. You don't need to have any of those kind of components installed onto your computer or onto your browser to showcase any of these websites.
It's just something which I just thought of. So, are there situations where you actually have an option sometimes whether you need to do if you want to use a server side script or a client side script? Sometimes are there situations like this?
Yes, depending on the kind of the design of the page and the kind of functionality which you want to create on this page, you could have client side. I mean, there is an option wherein one could do a client side or a server side programming. In terms of feasibility, at times, basically catering to the kind of designs which certain people want. For example, if somebody wants a Flash based piece, one can render Flash as well or showcase Flash based files, but again that the computer needs to support Flash for that particular piece.
Right. So we just mentioned that PHP is the most popular. Is it the most popular server side? It's not the most popular, right? Microsoft would be
Yes.
ASP would be the most popular, but in terms of in the open source fraternity, it is the most widespread.
Especially on the Web 2.0 kind
Yeah.
of pieces, PHP has become more popular, and because of its flexible programming side, in terms of creation of websites which are, for example, Ajax enabled. Just like when you see Facebook, wherein you can just press the plus button and the web page goes down. So those are newer functionalities which are easily available in this, and which create the dynamicness on the website, which is your Web 2.0, which people have been talking about, which is easily enabled using PHP.
Right. And a lot of the content management systems today are using PHP, right? So even if you want to get into build a site using WordPress, get specialized in that, the basic technology that you have to learn is PHP at the end of the day. Right?
True. So these are basically, when you say CMS, these are frameworks, PHP frameworks, like your Joomla or any one of them.
Yeah, most of them are PHP.
All
Yeah,
PHP
okay.
based,
Right.
and which enable you to create or manage these websites in a much easier manner. When you say create and manage, basically it's when you create dynamic websites, the content